Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you've given us, articles, notes, research, and really plunge in to pull out the most important knowledge, those surprising facts and insights that stick with you.
Exactly. We act as your guides, helping you sort of navigate the information, understand what's key, and get up to speed quickly.
And today we're doing a deep dive into Chapter 4 of Ocean Vuong's, well, incredibly powerful book, The Emperor of Gladness. You've shared some really fascinating excerpts with us, giving us a direct window into this part of Hai's journey.
That's right. This chapter, it mostly follows Hai as he's searching for work, and he lands in this pretty absurd world of a place called HomeMarket.
Right.
It's this space that's full of, the mundane realities of low-wage labor. But as Vuong shows us, it kind of surprisingly becomes a place where Hai finds these unexpected moments of solace, maybe even a form of belonging.
So our mission today is to really unpack what makes this chapter work. We're going to explore Vuong's unique style, that mix of poetic language and really sharp social commentary.
hmm And trace Hai's emotional journey through it all.
Yeah.
We'll also highlight where beauty sort of emerges from the everyday and look at the powerful symbolism around rediscovering literature later on.
Yeah, and the themes woven through it, identity, belonging, the reality of labor, and just that quiet dignity of, well, surviving. We're here to guide you through the key scenes and ideas from these sources, pulling out those interesting nuggets.
Sounds good.
All right, let's jump in. So the chapter kicks off with Hai arriving at HomeMarket for a job interview, and right away, it's not your standard welcome.
No, it's jarring, isn't it? Before he even steps inside, he's out back by the door and runs into this grime-covered coworker. They call him the Stoner Kid, or Russia.
Okay.
And the interaction is just, well, it's crude and pretty surreal right from the start.
Asking these completely random questions like strawberry shortcake or Irish flour, it instantly sets this tone that's kind of rough and unexpected, especially, given Vuong's usually lyrical style.
Exactly. It's like Vuong immediately grounds you in this very specific, raw reality. It contrasts with his usual style, showing this mix of the crass and the almost existential.
Right.
And that's where you get that line from Sony, who shows up a bit later, about having to start at the asshole of things before you can get to the heart.
Oof. Yeah, that line really lands. It tells you straight up, this is about starting from the absolute bottom, the unglamorous part. And the setting reinforces that too, doesn't it? This bleak strip of pavement, abandoned buildings, soot-blackened brick.
Absolutely. It's not a place you aspire to. It's
Yeah.
a place you end up out of necessity,
Mm.
which leads him right into meeting the manager, BJ, or Big Gene.
BJ. Now, she's quite a character based on the sources.
Okay.
6'3", buzz cut fade, this really imposing figure with a kind of commanding, almost theatrical
Her
vibe.
presence is huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
And her approach to interviewing is, well, let's just say unconventional.
Uh-huh.
The very first thing she does is physically check Hai's eyes for drug use, saying stuff like, pupil's still big. At least he's not on heroin.
Wow, okay. And then the tour of the facilities, which sounds like it's pretty underwhelming. The sources say no larger than an RV.
It's tiny. You see the industrial oven that's for the cornbread, a stainless steel sink, a broom closet, and this little door just labeled office. Then you move to the front area, the rotisserie oven, the stained plastic counter, the vats of food keeping warm.
And this is where Vuong drops in that detail that really pulls back the curtain, right? The food's brilliant luminosity, its engineered look, researched at an institute funded by the wife of a Raytheon board member.
That detail is such a perfect, striking nugget, isn't it? It just shows this huge, almost invisible corporate machine behind it all. The capital, the behavioral science that goes into something as seemingly simple as fast casual food. It's not accidental at all. It's like meticulously engineered.
It adds this whole layer of absurdity and complexity to the operation. And that corporate reality clashes so sharply with BJ's big, inflated, almost like a sermon rhetoric about HomeMarket.
Oh yeah, her home market sermon is where the satire just takes off, calling it where the magic happens, declaring this is where America is fed. She insists it's not like other fast casuals, definitely not run-of-the-mill type shit.
And that main analogy she uses HomeMarket is Thanksgiving, but without all the bad parts.
Yeah.
No fucked up relatives, no nasty dried ass turkey, no cooking, hell, not even the shitty decor.
She uses these specific, almost funny details to sell the whole thing, like claiming they don't use microwaves like Denny's,
Right.
pointing out the slightly burnt marshmallows on the sweet potato pie, saying they're designed to remind you of grandma, even if you don't have one.
And then Maureen's perfect deadpan comment about the creamed spinach that it don't taste like vegetables, it tastes like dinner. That just completely undercuts BJ's whole performance.
It's such a great line. And then BJ's big finish. We are magicians. We turn food into feeling, folks. You get me? We transform it. There's this huge, almost kind of desperate energy in how she delivers it.
Which just makes the reality hit harder. The job pays $7.15 an hour. Getting a 10-cent raise takes, what, 2 years,
Mhm.
give or take?
Yeah.
And the other employees mostly seem bored or just resigned, except for Sony, who looks at BJ with this mix of, like, awe and fear.
And the bragging about the store being the third best grossing in the Northeast, it feels pretty empty when you hear the reasons other locations are in food deserts or train stations where, people are hungry anyway. It's not
Yeah.
really about success. It's about leveraging existing needs.
The sources also give these little glimpses into the workplace dynamics through the banter, right? Like talking about basketball players, Samuel Dalembert, Wayne's critiques, Maureen mentioning Vin Baker and her son who passed away.
It shows how they find these small ways to connect or distract themselves or just process their lives while they're stuck in this environment. It's those little human moments layered on top of the corporate absurdity.
And then there's BJ's other identity. She's not just the manager. She wants to be an amateur wrestler, talking about needing an entrance song, her arms are gold philosophy, comparing herself to Rikishi.
Yeah, it adds another layer of the surreal and maybe something a little sad to her character. This whole section just lays bare that tension between, the necessity of labor, maybe the dignity and just being useful, and the often exploitative, bizarre reality of this kind of low-wage work.
Yeah, the sources really emphasize how the labor itself is just mundane. Unpleasant tasks like cleaning toilets, changing urinal cakes, and there's basically no advancement. BJ tells Hai straight up, don't think you're going to work your way up to owning one of these bad boys.
And the corporate control is always there, like that command center down in Atlanta. Even the initial interview isn't really an interview, it's just high viewing the place, like BJ says.
Hai's training is another example of this bureaucratic weirdness. Watching an old VHS tape in a broom closet, learning how to hold a bag like it was a precious baby.
Right. And the training video itself has this strategically multiracial cast with perfect smiles, which is such a contrast to the real tired, complex people Hai actually works with.
Even clocking in feels so detached. Hai gets code 2163, and it feels so impersonal he wishes it was the year the sun explodes. Meanwhile, Sony chose 1865, referencing the end of the Civil War. That's quite a statement.
It is. And Sony's attitude when Hai isn't clocked in for hours, just brushing it off as human error, really shows the indifference to the worker's time and value. But, even with all this bleakness and absurdity, Vuong's writing somehow elevates the whole experience.
Yes, that's one of the most amazing things here. The sources point out how Vuong uses this lyrical, poetic language even when he's describing, fast food or corporate stuff.
Like calling the food's appearance engineered luminosity, or describing Hai clocking in as obtaining an eternal present, manifested only by his functional existence. It's quite something.
One source called it poetic prose meets workplace comedy, which feels spot on. It highlights how Hai's job isn't just about a paycheck. Vuong frames it almost like a spiritual resurrection, a place where Hai can finally feel useful, not haunted.
And this is where you really start to see Hai's emotional journey taking shape. Getting this job, even with all its issues, triggers a really significant internal shift for him.
Yeah, his reaction is described as something like warmth, a current of relief. The room even seems to physically change for him, spinning and gleaming with colors.
It's complicated, though. He's gaining a real quantifiable foothold. He's part of a team. But there's also this feeling of being so included in something as to be swallowed by it, invisible among a visible human mass.
It's that weird paradox, right? Finding belonging, but through a kind of erasure. The time card, the eternal present, means he has no history because one was not required of him.
Exactly. And as the sources point out, having no history also meant having no sadness. He's simplified, reduced to just function. He becomes America's fuel, burning to be used, to be useful.
And then you get that incredibly moving moment where Russia, the stoner kid, unexpectedly gives him a chicken drumstick, and Hai just starts crying.
Yeah. The flavor is described as mounting the feeling already on his chest. And he feels granted into a realm much greater than his sad little life.
It's not just the taste of the chicken, it's the taste of unexpected kindness, of basic nourishment, unlocking all this pent-up emotion. And that moment with food really leads us into some powerful symbols Vuong uses.
Absolutely. The cornbread, for instance. It keeps coming back and becomes way more than just food. The sources call it a portal to emotional release, a sacrament, a symbol of being nurtured.
Vuong gives it such specific sensory detail, those crispy edges, how it dissolves on the tongue, the salty sweetness, cornbread more corn-like than any corn he'd ever tasted.
And the scene where he shares it with Grazina, his landlady. She's hesitant at first, worried about her teeth.
Right.
But her reaction is just so visceral. Oh, Jesus, Mary. She's deeply moved, calls him Labas, which is Lithuanian for hello or a friendly greeting, and praises the geniuses he works for.
That simple piece of cornbread becomes this bridge, this tangible way to share comfort and receive a kind of recognition. And then there's that pizza memory Hai has, which is painful but really stays with you.
Oh, yeah. His mother falling asleep, face down in a pizza slice after a 13-hour shift. That image of the greasy stain, the shape of a warped heart, is incredibly powerful. It just captures the sheer exhaustion, the physical toll of that kind of relentless work.
And connected to that, the little plastic pizza table, the thing that stops the box lid from crushing the pizza. Hai's grandmother sees it not as junk, but as an altar for feeding spirits. She says, only Pizza Hut thinks about people like us.
That's such a beautiful example of cultural inheritance, isn't it?
Right.
Adapting traditions, finding meaning and dignity in these overlooked everyday objects. It shows how even mundane things can be given deep significance through different cultural viewpoints.
And finally, the discovery in the basement, Grazina's basement library. It's initially described as this hoarder's chaos left by her late husband Jonas, just a life's worth of salvaged goods.
Grazina tells Hai she spent all day making a path for him through all the stuff. And then, hidden behind a sheet, he finds this treasure trove, paper gold, rows and rows of classic books, modern authors.
Some are decaying, but finding them is huge for Hai, especially the brothers Karamazov, because he'd meant to read it with his friend Noah, who had died.
Right, he'd actually thrown away a copy he found after Noah's funeral. So finding it again here, literally among a pile of salvaged trash, feels like something close to mercy.
And this rediscovery of literature connects straight back to Hai's own quiet, almost buried dream, doesn't it, of being a consciousness sitting under a light bulb, reading his days away, warm and alone. Alone and yet somehow still somebody's son.
It's like finding a fundamental part of himself again, something that got lost under the pressure of just trying to survive.
Mm.
And Grazina's own stories add more layers here. Her memories of Jonas hoarding, but also how he dismissed their daughter Lena's reading, calling her interests like aliens and goblins, saying she was stuck in La La Land.
But then Grazina shares that amazing story of running away with Lena, getting a pizza, and just watching her daughter read, feeling like God and the most powerful woman in the world. It's such a strong affirmation of finding agency and dignity through supporting creativity, even when things are tough.
So yeah, when you pull all these different threads together, this chapter uses these really vivid scenes and symbols to explore some pretty big themes.
You've got that constant tension between the dignity of simply working, the need to be useful, and the often absurd, exploitative reality of the job highlands.
And you see cultural inheritance not just in big traditions, but in small food rituals, adapted customs, like that pizza table becoming an altar.
Hai's identity feels both stripped down, almost erased by the job, but also strangely reaffirmed by the structure it gives him, and then powerfully reignited by finding those books, finding that part of himself again.
It also really explores that feeling of loneliness versus finding some kind of inclusion, even if it's flawed, like within the HomeMarket team.
And ultimately, I think it really highlights the quiet dignity in survival itself, in finding those small moments of beauty or connection or meaning in simple comforts like cornbread or books or memories, or just feeling like you belong somewhere, even if it's complicated.
It's a real testament to finding your footing, finding moments of grace in places you'd least expect.
It truly is. It's such a powerful chapter about navigating tough situations and finding your place, however small or messy it might seem. Vuong just masterfully uses that poetic language and sharp satire to elevate these seemingly ordinary, low-status experiences and show the incredible depth within them.
And the chapter really drives home that even when you feel like your identity is lost or erased by just trying to get by or by the weirdness of work, the smallest comforts, a piece of warm cornbread, a forgotten book found in the trash, a memory, or even just feeling part of a flawed team, they can be incredibly powerful anchors.
Yeah.
They remind us of who we are, what we still hold on to, and what nourishes us beyond just survival.
So as you think about this deep dive, maybe consider this. How do the seemingly smallest comforts or the most unexpected places in your own life remind you of who you are or what you still hold on to?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.